Okay, so let's talk about the two main types of stem cells that we introduce you to in this section, okay? So you've got embryonic and tissue, okay? You might kind of recognise this, your teacher, or you might have read in some kind of books, might talk about these are classed as adult stem cells as well, but that gives a kind of false impression that only adults have them when they don't, okay? So kind of tissue kind of helps as well you understand where they can be found, okay? So embryonic and tissue. So when we talk about embryonic stem cells, we're talking about, so when we think about it as a human blastocyst, so a human blastocyst is basically an early embryo, okay? And the early embryo, this blastocyst contains a small number of embryonic stem cells, okay? So we would get our embryo from an IVF donor. Okay, a fertilised egg from an IVF donor. Someone's went through IVF and they've donated fertilised eggs, okay? And essentially this blastocyst, so here we have our egg cell and our sperm cell, the nuclei fuse, okay? And we go through division, cellular division, okay? So this original zygote, this fertilised egg, okay, is going to go through a process of growth and rapid division. And in about 5 days, this early embryo is classed as a blastocyst, okay? And these cells, and again, it's just so simple, but it's very simplified, but it's try to help you, that these purple cells inside here are really these embryotic stem cells that we want, okay? And all of the genes in this embryonic cell have the potential to be switched on, basically. And because they're switched on, that therefore means they have the potential to be any type of cell within the body, okay? So it says these inner cells can differentiate into any cell type. And when we talk about a cell that has the potential to differentiate into any cell type, we class it as pluripotent, okay? So inner cells of blastocyst are pluripotent. So the scientists can basically take these cells from the blastocyst, these embryonic stem cells, okay? And as I say, they can differentiate into any type of stem cell, okay? And that's the real reason why, yes, as we say, we talk later on, I'm not necessarily talking about it during this revision period. However, that's where we talk about the ethical side, using it, because when we remove these inner cells, okay, the embryo is no longer what classed as viable. And again, as we've talked about in class, it depends on an individual's belief system, okay? And again, it goes on, the RNPS talks about this at great depth from a more kind of humanistic point of view, but from a scientific point of view, what we're talking about is the individual's belief in what these cells represent. Some people believe as soon as the egg and the sperm cell fertilise, that's a human being, that's life. Whereas some people believe they're just a ball of cells that doesn't represent life yet, okay? And that's when the people would obviously donate their eggs, whereas some people wouldn't donate their eggs because they know, essentially, and the scientists will be very upfront with them about the process here, okay? That might go against their belief system. So there's a kind of ethical debate around the use of embryonic stem cells, all right? And in tissue, so basically, so your tissue stem cells are found in the different kind of locations of the cells that we're talking about, okay? So if we're talking about skin or a kind of red bone marrow, all right? So when we talk about these stem cells, say we were talking about red bone marrow, so we're talking about blood stem cells. And again, this is what we kind of go back to when we're talking about mitosis and about the growth and repair or renewal of new cells, okay? So if we want to use our blood cells as an example, so here's our blood stem cell, so this original cell, it's not a blood cell, okay, or a red blood cell or a platelet yet, okay, so it's the original cell, all right, but it can only differentiate into that particular type of cell that you find in that tissue. Okay, so this is a tissue that we're going to talk about. So this is basically a bone, believe it or not. No, I'm not very good at drawing bones. So here's our bone, okay, and within this bone is our bone marrow, and it's the bone marrow that's classed as a tissue. And in this bone marrow, it can give rise to the certain types of cells that you find in blood, in red blood. Okay, so red bone marrow relates to red blood cells, platelets, lymphocytes, monocytes. There's many different types of cells that you find within the blood, especially when we link that in relation to the immune system. All right, but I've just kind of listed the ones that you will know the terms of, or i.e. we teach you within the course. Okay, so the tissue stem cell relates to the stem cells that you find within that individual tissue, and the tissue that we're giving you an example of is bone marrow, and within them we can find, so this is where these red blood cells originate from, are basically grown or renewed. Okay, so we get red blood cells, platelets. So again, remember we spoke about that way back last June when we talked about immunology in relation to making clots and repairing any kind of wounds. And then lymphocytes was the individual specialised cell in relation to fighting against any type of pathogen that comes into the body. Okay, so because these tissue stem cells, okay, can only differentiate into the cell type of that particular tissue where you find them, they are classed as multipotent. So they are not pluripotent. They cannot divide into any type of cell. They can only divide into the type of cell that's found in that particular tissue. Okay, so they are multipotent. Okay, multipotent, more specialised type of cells in that surrounding tissue area, whereas pluripotent in relation to embryonic stem cells, and they can differentiate into any type of cell.